Welcome to Fueling Your Legacy, hosted by Samuel Knickerbocker. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a new, stronger foundation essential in creating your legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Welcome back to Fueling Your Legacy, and today we're going to be talking about storytelling. Why is storytelling so essential when building a legacy, and how can we make it the most effective for our legacy? How can we take our story, the morals, the values, the things that we think are important, and turn them into a story and make that story easily transferable to multi-generational across different cultures? We got to make sure that these things, they're easily spreadable, so that when I tell a story to somebody, that person who just heard my story can easily, with their mind, be able to remember and go and retell that story. If they can't go and retell that story, then we're probably not going to be able to spread our message as far as we'd like to spread our message. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. I do want to just direct you, and if you want to get more of this content or watch the videos or whatever you find the easiest way to consume content is, I'm starting again to start posting things on YouTube. So that will be happening, as well as if you go to my website, samknickerbocker.com, you're going to have access to my webinar, which should be live by the end of this week. I'm going to be recording it either today or tomorrow, so that's going to happen. And then also my free ebook is up there. My website's still under construction, so if you have a few glitches, don't get put off too bad, but it is up, and it's at least mechanically there for people to see and to work through. Also, you can go to my Facebook page, you can direct message me there, or my Instagram. Go and follow me there, or subscribe and be constantly open to receiving this content. The one thing that I've learned about storytelling and why it's so important from a legacy standpoint is really understanding, what do I want my legacy to be? So that's the first thing. We have to identify, what do we want our legacy to be? And then how can we tell that with passion, with love, with care, and make sure that people are understanding what that legacy is. So for storytelling purposes, I tend to look towards kind of the greatest storytellers that I've ever read from, okay? And I'm gonna say read from because I think one of the greatest storytellers, if not the greatest storyteller, was Jesus Christ. And he was able to create a movement. He was born into a time when had no followers. He was definitely going against the grain. He was a small, the out crowd, basically. He created a tribe. And what was cool about what he did is he would have these morals, and he always responded with a moral, but with a story. These parables is what they're called in the scriptures. They're very short. Like if you're looking at the parable, they're like less than 40 to 50 words most of the time. And every word is uniquely placed. Now, whether that's how they were in Hebrew or whatever the original language is, I don't know. I just read it in English because that's the only language I know. But if you think about it, they're short concept and story that's easily transferable, right? So what's some stories that he told that taught a principle that were clear enough and involved enough senses to make it memorable and impactful to the listener, right? So one story is the gift, or the story of the talents, right? This is told in just about all religions in one form or another, but I'm going to use the Christianity version because that's the one I know the best. But basically, this master, he gives 3 people some talents. He gives one person 1 talent, gives the second person 2 talents, the other person 5 talents. And he says, hey, look, I'm going to go away. When I come back, I want to see what you've done with these talents. And the first guy just buries it under the ground. He's scared of losing it, puts it under the ground. The second guy doubles it. The third guy, who got 5, he doubles his money. Well, that's awesome. The master comes back and says, hey, what happened to these talents? Well, the 5th guy reports and says, hey, I doubled my talents. And the master says, great job. Second guy, doubled my talents. Great job. The third guy, the guy who buried it because he was scared of losing it, he got his talent. The master took his talent and said, hey, look, you're a slothful servant. It wasn't good what you did. And he gives his talents to the guy who had the 5 talents and doubled his 5 talents. Now, what's impactful about that story? Well, it's easily it's easily memorable. It's simple. It's a 3-part story, basically. It also involves a few different morals. One, the idea of giving and trusting others with their with the ability to go and make something themselves, not being angry with what the outcome is. There's no anger in that story as far as the master taking the slothful servants thing. It wasn't an act of anger. It was just simply that guy didn't know how to use that talent, and so he got it taken away. That's a natural law that we all deal with. It's called atrophy. If we don't use something, it atrophies, it recesses. You're either growing or you're dying. There's no like holding constant. And so in that example, we're learning a natural law. We're learning a moral that we should be actively trying to increase, right? The fear of not increasing is what was the bad part of that story, right? It wasn't that he didn't, that he wasn't able to. It was that he buried it because he didn't believe that it would be appreciated or that other people would be able to see the value in that, right? What are you burying? What are you choosing to ignore in your life, gifts that you've been given because you don't know how they're going to be accepted? You probably get a pit in your stomach every time you think, oh, I want to do this. And then you get a pit in your stomach thinking, oh, I feel so guilty for wanting to express myself because I don't think other people are going to accept me, right? That pit in your stomach, that's because you're not living your purpose. It's not because you had a dream that you shouldn't have had or had a desire that you shouldn't have had. That icky pit in your stomach, in most cases, is because you're stopping yourself from fully expressing yourself. It's because you're burying your talent underground. So that's a simple story that's very, very condensed. But what it does is it teaches a simple principle, and actually multiple principles. It's a story that can be applied in multiple different areas. So basically what he did is he took that story, and now that story is widely known. It's taught in multiple books. And that is part of his legacy, was able to teach simple things of growth and always becoming better self, right? I think that's the whole message, at least for me. That's what I get out of my relationship with Christ, and what I'm striving for is just to be better every day, right? And so Christ's legacy, really for me, one of his legacies is that I can become better every day. And that's the idea, the whole idea and concept that Christ was promoting is how are you becoming better every day? How are you becoming more and more like this infinite being, God, in the next existence, right? So what parables, what stories are you telling in your life? What are things that you're willing to share? So I'll share one from probably one of my favorite stories from my grandpa, who I just love and respect deeply. And we were out picking cherries. So my grandpa always had a big farm, a big garden that a whole family would participate in cultivating and picking and growing and canning and all of that so we could all have food. Well, this one particular time, it was myself, my older brother Gabe, and my cousin Vi, and we were picking cherries from one of the cherry trees that was around his garden. And because I was a rather rambunctious kid, he wouldn't let me go up on the ladder because he was scared I would fall off. Thank you to my grandpa for that, because I don't know if it's would have happened, but I'm glad it happened. Kind of irrelevant. So we're picking these cherries, and he says, hey, would you like to have cherry pie? He asks me, my brother, and my cousin this, and we're like, yeah, that would be so great, right? So we finish picking all the cherries, pack up, we get home, and as soon as we walk in the door, my grandpa addresses my grandma and says, hey, the boys would like some cherry pie and ice cream. Could we make that happen? Right? Now, my brother, my cousin, and I were just like, oh, we didn't say that. He asked if we wanted it, right? And what's important about that story is the marketing, right? He knew that if he were to ask for somebody else, then he was more likely to get something. How often in our lives especially from a business standpoint, are we asking for ourselves? Are we trying to promote ourselves rather than have somebody else refer us, somebody else ask for something for us, right? If we are strategic about our marketing, then we're going to have a lot more success. We did have that cherry pie and ice cream. We went to the store, got some vanilla ice cream. It was great. And that probably wouldn't have happened if my grandpa came in and said, hey, wife, can you make us some cherry pie and ice cream? It may have, but it may not have. Now, some people are going to think of that and they're going to say, well, that's manipulating. That's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. I think it's just a really good principle for us to learn that sometimes we need to ask for things in a certain way so we can get the desired result. If we're so hell-bent on asking things in a certain the best way or the way that we've been taught to do it, then we may miss out on significant opportunities. It happens with money, it happens with debt, it happens with progress, happens with education. So many people, they're afraid to ask, and so they never get it. The answer will always be no if you don't ask. And if you don't learn how to ask, then it's going to be no a lot more percentage of the time. So learning how to ask something is super important. So that's a short story that was really, really impactful for me in my childhood, helped me gain the confidence to learn how to ask something and learn that marketing is important. How you present an idea, super important. And so it's those smaller stories that build up a legacy of communication, of results, of love, of care, those things like that. I'm grateful as a child that my grandpa was looking out for me and was trying to help me get some ice cream and cherry pie, right? How many of you have people that are counting on you to achieve a goal, and it's up to you to go make sure you learn how to ask for it? How many of you are parents who are looking for or have been saddled with the responsibility, I guess, of caring for your family, providing income and things like that, and they're counting on you to know how to go make money, and yet oftentimes people just sit back rest on their laurels. They just forget or they just don't have the drive. I don't know what it is, but they aren't actively chasing to get more and more and more for their family, keep winning bigger for their family and for those other people that they could bless if they were willing to really go out and serve on a big, big way. And so that's really where I've seen the biggest impact in these storytellings. We're going to go into greater depth with the book, The Power of Storytelling by Ty Bennett. And then Ty Bennett, man, I'm so grateful that he was able to come and be a guest on my podcast. This Friday, we're going to be posting up his episode. And he is one of the modern masters of storytelling, if you ask me. Like, he gets it. He studies it. He is definitely an expert in this arena. And so I'm excited for you guys to get to listen to him, and it will be absolutely valuable for you to listen to him. I'm going to be doing a little book review on his book. I think I did one a few months ago, but I'm going to do another one just because it's such a powerful book, The Power of Storytelling, and how that's impacted his life, how it's changed his life, how it's given him and his family the life of their dreams, and how can we then in turn take those same principles and go to create our legacy. That's his legacy, is being a master in storytelling. My legacy is going to be a little bit different, but I'm going to use his talent to produce my legacy. And that's where I think this can be the most beneficial. That's why we're calling this Fuel Your Legacy. We want to make sure that people understand every principal topic that we talk about. We're talking about habits, mindsets, and behaviors that are going to be effective for you to fuel your legacy and make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck whenever you're doing something, whether it's in business, in your family, in your faith, or in your fitness. How are you promoting your legacy? How are you living in a way that other people will know what you stand for and always be able to look back and say, hey, I may not like Sam, I may not love his mission or anything, but I know exactly what he stood for. I know exactly what his mission was. I know exactly what his objective was. Whenever we sat down, whenever we interacted, whenever I heard anything from him, I knew exactly what he was doing. And that's my goal of a legacy of clarity, a legacy of purpose, a legacy of serving and helping others receive that self-confidence so that they can go and create a legacy of meaning for their life. So hopefully this was helpful. Again, please, if you see this on Instagram or Facebook, give a shout out. And then if you are listening to this, if you take a screenshot and post it and tag me in it and promote that to your friends, then I definitely will give you a shout out here on the podcast. I have a few friends who will text me and they're like, oh, great job. I really learned this from your podcast. And I think, really great job. How about you post that on social media and tell everybody what you learned? One, because then you get your name on the podcast, which is kind of cool. And it helps you grow your business as well because you get brand recognition. But secondly, it helps more people get that, right? If you are so passionate about what you got out of that episode, why not go share that with others? And that's the whole purpose, I think, of this life, is to go and help and bless the lives of others. And by sharing what you learn from any source, whether it's me or another podcast or another book, go and share that information so other people can be uplifted, guided to truth, and receive more fulfillment and joy in their life. And I promise you, it increases your life when you refer somebody to something and then they experience that. They will come back and be like, man, thank you so much. You just changed my life. That's a cool feeling, knowing that you had an impact on somebody else for the better, right? And that's, this all ties into storytelling, all ties into your legacy. So definitely take a screenshot, post it on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, and tag myself in it. And I will give you a shout out on the next podcast. Super excited for this week and what we have coming up. Don't miss it. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, go ahead and give it a subscribe, give it a review on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher. Make sure that other people can, by just looking at the page and say, okay, yes, should I listen to this? Should I not? Absolutely listen to it. It's going to give you a lot of value, and you're going to feel great about what you're able to accomplish from the tools, habits, mindsets, and behaviors that you're gaining from this podcast. So stay tuned for more on storytelling, and I know it's going to change your life, change how you communicate. It's changed mine, and it's helped me actually communicate with my wife better, because now I can tell a story and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. This is the meaning of the story. This is the parable. Let's move forward. Let's identify how we can work through this. So excited, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks for joining us today. If what you heard resonated with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me so I can give you a shout out on the next episode. And thanks to all those who have left a review. It helps spread the message of what it really takes to build a legacy that lasts. Catch you next time on Fueling Your Legacy.